Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm Deputy City Manager Cynthia Barber, and I'd like to welcome you to the unveiling of the MLK Historic Markers, Dream Builders, and Voices of Movement. Thank you for gathering with us this morning as we honor the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the local leaders who have made significant contributions in the quest for equality and civil rights for African Americans in the Tallahassee area. I would like to pause just a moment to recognize our dignitaries, elected officials, and community leaders who have joined us this morning. We have Mayor John Dailey, Mayor Pro Tem Mr. Curtis Richardson. We have Commissioner Diane Williams Cox. I have our City Manager, Mr. Reese Gold, our City Attorney, Cassandra Jackson. We have our Police Chief. We also have a representative from Representative Tant's office, Ms. Haley Davenport, who's joined us this morning. We have a County Commissioner, Rick Minor, who's joined us this morning as well. And then I think I saw, we have a representative from Commissioner Porter's office as well this morning. And then we have former school board member Maggie Lewis Butler. Thank you all for being here this morning, and we'll recognize our community leaders a little bit further in the program. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to celebrate our community solidarity and appreciation and the reflection of keeping the ideas of Dr. King alive and well, and recognizing those in our local community who have worked in the trenches to make a difference and who served as foot soldiers for this movement. While our work is not done yet, and there's not a full realization of Dr. King's dream for every single citizen of our community and this country, we have accomplished a lot. And so this is an opportunity for us to make sure that we never forget how far we have come as a community and as a nation. I'm certainly honored to stand here today and to be among so many who have worked in the trenches in our community and who are embracing and uplifting our community members. And if at no other time than one such as this, when our nation and our community face the uncertainties impacted by the pandemic, it certainly is an honor to be a part of a community where there are so many giving and selfless people who work in the trenches every day. At this time, I'd like to ask the mayor if he would come forth with his comments. And he'll be followed by Mayor Pro Tem Richardson and then Commissioner Diane Williams Cox.
Thank you, Cynthia. Well, good morning. Oh, good morning. It's a beautiful day in Tallahassee. Good morning. My name is John Dailey. I am the proud mayor of this great city. First and foremost, I want to thank my friend Rick Minor from the county for joining us. I want to thank Representative Tant's office for joining us as well. You're in the throes of session and you still take time to come, and we really appreciate it. And please tell Representative Tant how much we appreciate the representation, along with Representative Alexander and Senator Ausley. Maggie Lewis Butler, it's always a pleasure to see you as well. In fact, folks, I don't know if you know, on a side note, there are two individuals here, both Maggie and the Mayor Pro Tem Curtis Richardson, who served with my father, Scott Dailey, on the Leon County School Board, and now I have the honor of serving with Curtis on the City Commission. But it's always good to see you, and thank you so much for joining us. What a great way to start this incredible weekend, but with this event itself. You know, the City of Tallahassee, we aim to be the creative city capital of the state of Florida that celebrates diversity and truly supports strong neighborhoods and a vibrant community. This project in particular shows how when local government and the citizens come together, we can achieve that vision together. In July of 2020, city staff began collaborating with representatives of neighborhoods bordering Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard from Levy Park, Frenchtown, Carolina Oaks, South Bronough Street, to implement small-scale enhancements. How do we beautify this incredible corridor? And the resulting project was Dream Builders, Voices of Movement. It includes the installation of interpretive markers, benches, all financed by an incredible grant by Keep America Beautiful. We are so proud that we are moving forward. And again, it's important to recognize one of our strengths here in Tallahassee is vibrant neighborhoods, incredible citizens working hand in hand with the city to accomplish our goals. At this time, I'd like to invite, and I want to thank also my two colleagues that chose to be here today. And I would like to invite the Mayor Pro Tem, the Dean of the City Commission, and my friend Curtis Richardson for remarks, followed by Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox, my good friend as well. Thank you. Dean?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. As the Mayor has mentioned, I'm Curtis Richardson, the Mayor Pro Tem of great city of Tallahassee, and it is a pleasure to be here this morning. I want to thank all of you all who didn't deem it robbery to be here to celebrate this great occasion, the unveiling of the 3 markers that will capture the history, the proud history, not only of our great city of Tallahassee, but the history of the African American communities and those who led the way, whose shoulders we stand on, and is the reason why Commissioner Williams-Cox and I are able to serve on the Tallahassee City Commission, and Maggie Lewis Butler and I were able to serve on the Leon County School Board, and so many other advancements because of their efforts, their work, and their sacrifice. We are here today, and we in these markers are preserving that history. And I have to tell you, I'm so full of emotion this morning, and I want to thank Delmas Barber, because Delmas pointed out to me this marker, and on that marker is my cousins, Kate and Colette Warren, who lived right on the corner, who were educators here in the Leon County School District. My uncle and aunt, Bob and Annie Richardson, who were business owners in Frenchtown and lived on Georgia Street. My dad, who was born and raised in Donaldsonville, Georgia, but came to live with my uncle and aunt here in Tallahassee and graduated from original Lincoln High School. And so this has a personal significance for me because of the personal history that I share with those who lived and worked and had businesses here in the Frenchtown community, and that history is being preserved in these historic markers, and that's what this is all about. I want to recognize several dynamic women who have contributed to making this happen. And I know there's always, Mayor, you run a risk when you start calling names. You may miss somebody, but if I do, blame it to my head and not my heart. But I want to recognize Darrell Scott. I want to recognize Annie Harris. I want to recognize Altamise Barnes. I want to recognize Cheryl Collier Brown and others who are here this morning that have contributed to making this happen. And like I said, if I miss somebody, please charge it to my head and not my heart, because you all know the contributions that you have made to making this happen. And one of the things that we have done, I think, and is very significant here in the city of Tallahassee, is naming this very street that we're on after the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as we go into the celebration of his birth on Monday. Tallahassee's Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard spans just about 3 miles from Florida A&M University on the southern end to Monroe Street on the north, and traverses 6 neighborhoods. These neighborhoods, as I mentioned, are rich in history, and the older residents have many stories of the time that Dr. King and others of the civil rights movement spent right here in our city. The markers being unveiled today tell some of these stories, as well as stories of local civil rights leaders and foot soldiers of that movement. Near and dear to my heart, as a former educator, is the panel that showcases Dr. King's advocacy for education and the local efforts to desegregate Leon County schools. And the person I want to recommend, or recognize rather, that was special in my heart because she lived right across the street from my dad here in Frenchtown on Georgia Street and played an integral role in integrating the schools here in Leon County was at Aquilina Howard. Her husband Sam was a fraternity brother of mine. And so that family has special significance in my heart as well. The people, including children, honored on this panel carved a pathway to a better education for so many. And it was because of their efforts that schools were desegregated, we had better resources and a better education for our children, and indeed a better and brighter future. And so with that, I am pleased to be here this morning and to be a part of this unveiling, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve as your representative on the Tallahassee City Commission. I would like to now introduce my colleague, Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox, to give remarks as well. Commissioner Cox.
Thank you, Dean and Mayor, for this opportunity. Let me say good morning, first of all. Good morning. I look into this audience and I see family. I see friends. I see Dr. King's dream being realized. I see us diverse in our community. Yes, we look different, but we are all human beings, and that was his concern. And today we stand on a street in the capital city of the state of Florida, named for him, to recognize some of those accomplishments. And I am very excited about this weekend as we honor the King and as we honor those who work with him. But here on the local level, thank you to you giants, those of you who stood when it wasn't comfortable, when you didn't feel well. And sometimes there were dogs, there were water hoses, there were other things that could have kept you from marching on, but you marched on. If you had not marched on, I would not be here. The second black female elected to the City Commission in almost 200 years. Thank you. Thank you for going anyhow. You know, the song says, I'm climbing the rough side of the mountain. Well, I had a little preacher at our church. Y'all know Dr. Sias Lee. His daddy was a little preacher. And the little preacher said, if it wasn't rough, you couldn't climb it. So you gotta be able to climb the rough side of the mountain. And thank y'all for doing that here in Tallahassee, home of the 7 of the highest hills. You climbed those hills. You walked those flats. You did those things. Miss Scott, I see you. You still doing it. You got your scooter now, but you still doing it. Miss Lewis, you still doing it. You still doing it. Miss Barnes, Miss Maisha, all of you, giants, Reverend Farrell, all of y'all, I'm here standing on your shoulders. So I am emotional this morning. I do have some talking points, and I'm gonna get to them, but I gotta say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Because without you, we wouldn't be here. And I'm believing that Dr. King is looking down and he's proud because this is what he dreamed of. This was the dream. So to my talking points. Not far from here is CK Steel Plaza, named in honor of a great Tallahassee man who was instrumental in the civil rights movement. Through this project, his story will endure. One of the markers being unveiled today highlights Reverend Charles Kinsey Steele, his relationship with Dr. King. And for the children who don't know this, we've got to teach them. We've got to teach them their history. Dr. King came to Tallahassee on several occasions, and he was with Reverend C.K. Steele. And his relationship with Dr. King, his involvement with leading Bethel Missionary Baptist Church, my church, in the movement, and his efforts with the Tallahassee bus boycott. His is one of many stories we are preserving. And it is important that we preserve, because our children coming behind us won't know this if we don't leave something. You know, the scripture says, what meaneth ye by these stones? We've got to leave some stones in the community so the children will know that they're walking on fertile ground and that they're kings and queens and they need to continue this. It's important that we give them this. And we may not be here, as Dr. King said, I may not be there, but we're going to leave some markers so that they'll be able to know that we preserve. And it is my hope that we continue to see projects like this come to fruition in our community. By remembering and uplifting these stories and our history, we can continue the good and important work our forefathers and foremothers began toward a more equal society. God bless you all, and keep marching on.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. What inspiring comments. Today we are here in Frenchtown, which is one of the 5 neighborhood public safety initiative neighborhoods in which we are working. And in that case, what we're doing is we're working very intensely with the members of the neighborhood to identify issues, problems, and challenges, and also coming up with solutions for those things. It's community-led, and we already know that you cannot have a strong, vibrant city without strong, vibrant neighborhoods and strong leaders in those neighborhoods. And I'd like to recognize some of them. You'll hear from Mutaqee in just a little bit, but we have Mutaqee Akbar, who's here with us. We have neighborhood representatives, Dara Scott, if you'll wave for us, Ms. Scott. Ann Harris from Carolina Oaks. We have Cheryl Collier Brown. You've heard of her name earlier today. We have the Frenchtown CAT team members, Ms. Maisha Mitchell is with us. We have Kayla Norris Barber from Griffin Heights, Frenchtown, and all over the community. Sabrina Thurman Newby from Good Bread, Frenchtown, Bond, you name it. She's working everywhere as well. We have Mr. Jim Bellamy with us today as well. I think I saw, yes, Mr. Bellamy. Thank you all so much for the work that you do every day to improve not only Frenchtown, Griffin Heights neighborhoods, but our entire community. And I'd also like to recognize Walter McDonald. I think I saw him from Providence. It's important, and I like to see this kind of support, Walter, for being here to support us once again. We work across neighborhoods and across communities because we are one Tallahassee. I want to tell you a little bit about the project. This Dream Builders Voices of the Movement Historic Markers Project was shaped and molded by members of the community and neighborhoods surrounding the MLK corridor. There are 3 markers, and I want you to know a little bit about each of them, because as the commissioner said, it's really important not only that we know about these things, but that our children know about them. So at your own leisure, and when you have an opportunity, if you would visit each of the markers and introduce these markers to the youth in our community as well. They will carry the legacy of our community, and we want them to be knowledgeable about the contributions of African Americans and others who fought for civil rights and equality in our community. So the first marker is marker number 1 is located near Florida University, just south of FAMU Way, that honors King and his broader work for civil rights throughout the United States and the activism of local civil rights leaders who lobbied the City Commission to rename Boulevard Street, stretching from Palmetto Street to North Monroe Street, to Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. This marker also honors community civil rights activist Father David Henry Brooks, Reverend King Solomon DuPont, and Miss Edwina Stevens. Marker number 2 is located here in the Frenchtown Heritage Hub. It highlights Reverend Charles Kinsey Steele. You just heard a little bit about him, his legacy, and his contributions to our community. It honors his relationship with Dr. King, his involvement in leading Bethel Missionary Baptist Church in the civil rights movement, and efforts for the Tallahassee bus boycott, which also was life-changing in our community. The marker also honors the foot soldiers who provided logistic support and movement, including Leslie Graham Sanford and Cornelia Roberts Osborne. And then the third marker is located on the corner of 7th Avenue and MLK. It honors the history of Levy Park neighborhood, the desegregation of Leon County schools, and the work of early pioneers, including Elaine Thorpe, Philip Hadley, Marilyn Hollifield, Melody Thompson, and Harold Knowles in their respective roles of integrating the local school system. The marker also honors Dr. King's advocacy for education. The content of these markers was developed by Ann Roberts and Dolores Harpool. Is Dolores here today? Yes. Hi there, Dolores. Dr. Glenda Radby generously offered her skills to edit and fact-check these markers. And kudos to Ann, Dolores, and Dr. Radby for all the residents who helped with this project. I must pause because I must also recognize, I think I saw Altamise Barnes here today. We call it the Dean of History, particularly Tallahassee and African American history in Tallahassee and the Florida area. So good morning and thank you for being here as well. A part of you've probably noticed as a part of the marker projects is the street art, sidewalk art that you see in front of the marker here that we'll unveil in just a little bit. So I want you to take note of that as well. Are there any family members of honorees who are here? Any family members of the honorees that are on the markers? If so, if you'll stand for a moment and be recognized. Is that the Stevens family? Okay. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning. Okay, okay, hi there. Osborne family. Thank you for being here this morning, and thank you for the work and sacrifice of your family. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Somebody's? Miss Hadley. Oh, good morning. Thank you so much for being here as well. So at this, there's another one? Who?
David Brooks.
David Brooks. Okay, awesome. Thank you for being here as well, and thank your family for its contributions and the sacrifice. As Commissioner mentioned, it was not always safe to be vocal and out front, and in fact, in many cases, it was dangerous. And I remember as well, being a little girl, and a lot of these names I know. My dad drove cab before he became a police officer. He drove cab for what we call that time the black cab stand that was down here in Frenchtown. And so I know a lot of these names. I remember the Hadleys, I remember the Ralph Hadley store and different places here in Frenchtown from a little girl too. So it's so wonderful to hear and to acknowledge your contributions and your family's contributions in our community. At this time, if we could get Mutaqee, if you would come forth and bring greetings.
Good morning, how you all doing? I'm Mutaqee Akbar. I'm president of the NAACP Tallahassee branch. I'm also a member of the Frenchtown Cat team. And I want to bring you greetings on behalf of both organizations. John asked me to also give some brief remarks in regard to the celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King and the importance of it as well. And when I was thinking about that, you know, we always think about the I Have a Dream speech and kind of like the flowery, glowing things about Dr. King. And what sort of came to mind that I wanted to share is a story that actually Dr. Harry Belafonte said about Dr. King. And he talked about when he met with Dr. King shortly before Dr. King passed away, I believe at his home, and they had a conversation. And Belafonte noticed that Dr. King was kind of somber and wasn't in his usual mood. And so Belafonte asked him, he said, you know, what's going on? You seem kind of down, what's going on? And King responded to him and he said, I've come upon something that disturbs me deeply. We have fought hard and long for integration, as I believe we should have, and I know we will win. But I have come to believe that we are integrating into a burning house. I'm afraid that America has lost the moral vision she may have had. And I'm afraid that even as we integrate, we are walking into a place that does not understand that this nation needs to be deeply concerned with the plight of the poor and disenfranchised. Until we commit ourselves to ensuring that the underclass is given justice and opportunity, we will continue to perpetuate the anger and violence that tears the soul of this nation. I fear I am integrating my people into a burning house. And Belafonte asked King at that point, well, what should we do? And King replied that we should become the firemen. King said, let us not stand by and let the house burn. So as we sit in Frenchtown, in the zip code of the 32304, in the poorest neighborhood, the poorest zip code in the state of Florida, we can understand even more than most people about this idea of a burning house. When we look at Frenchtown, which was one of the most flourishing communities probably in the state of Florida, and then after the integration, when we lost our school, we eventually lost our businesses, and our people eventually lost their minds. And we lost our community. It was a burning house. And almost 50 years later, 60 years later, we're still dealing with this burning house. But we have to be the firemen. And as being the firemen, we have to ensure that the disenfranchised, like King said, have the opportunities that they deserve. So we have to be concerned about the homeless. We have to be concerned about those that are in poverty. We have to be concerned about why our schools are undereducating our students in order to get out of this burning house. We have to be concerned that the guy that lives about 4 blocks away from here are trying to take away the rights that Dr. King fought so hard to make sure that we have. So as we celebrate Dr. King, let's also remember his concerns about this burning house. And let's also take on that responsibility to be the firemen to put out the burn of this house. Thank you.
Thank you, Mutaqee. I think he just gave us all a charge. Before I call up Anita, I would like to take a moment. I don't think I did justice to the art component of the project, because I definitely want to take time to acknowledge the artists and the neighborhood coordinators who were responsible for helping us get this piece installed. As I indicated, the sidewalk art is a part of the project here in Frenchtown and across the community. And through a grant, this was funded through a grant. We were able to extend the Carolina Oaks neighborhood signature feature, which painted driveways in this segment of MLK. Annie Harris, I've introduced her earlier. She was responsible, the president of Carolina Oaks Homeowners Association, was coordinated this part of the project for us. So Annie, we want to thank you for that. And then a very special thank you to Mr. Irvin Brunson, the designer and artist for that sidewall artwork. Is the artist here this morning too? No? Okay, we certainly want to thank you for that. Okay, so next I have the pleasure of bringing up Miss Anita Franklin. Anita and I were in first grade together at Pineview. So that was my first best friend in school. There were actually 3 of us, Priscilla, Cynthia, and Anita. So Anita's going to come up and lead us and lift every voice and sing the National Negro Anthem. And I'd like to ask everybody if you would please stand. And if you went to FAMU High, like me and Mutaqee, we know all the words. But we don't necessarily know that you don't know with your mask on. And so if no other time, you might want a mask. because it is important that we do know the words to this song and that we give honor as Anita come forth.
We're going to sing the first two stanzas. Is that okay? That's all right. All right, all right. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun on a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Thank you, Anita. I learned a lot of things from my best friend, but singing was not one of them. But I appreciate the fact that she's blessed with the voice. I did forget one community leader, Miss Shauna Smith. Are you still with us, Shauna, from Appalachian Ridge? We want to recognize all of our neighborhood leaders for the sacrifice that they make. Okay, now we'll have Miss Sabrina Thurman Newby. Will you please come forth with a poem for us? The poem is titled Voices.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It is my honor and pleasure to present to you an original work by Miss Anthony Roberts entitled Voices. An homage to voices. Voices of the young, voices of the ancient, voices of the forgotten past, voices that proclaim, voices that exclaim, voices that rise up at last. Voices that speak of change, voices that honor the fallen, voices of unity. Voices that challenge, voices of faith. Voices that demand equality. Voices that heal, voices that calm. Voices that resonate, voices that formulate. Voices that cry for help, and voices that do not hesitate. Voices of the years, voices of the day. Voices of the night, voices of the prayerful, voices of the elders, and voices of deep insight. Voices of the weak, voices of the strong, voices of the bold, voices of the heart, voices of the mind, and voices of the soul. Soul voices.
All right.
Thank you, Sabrina. And we also want to, again, offer a special thank you to Ms. Ann Roberts, who wrote the poem and also contributed to the content for the markers. She's unable to be here with us today, but we certainly want to thank her for her kind and thoughtful contributions. So now it's time for us to proceed to the marker, so we could have the commission and the neighborhood representatives to help us to unveil the marker.